Hey everybody, welcome back to College Football Coast to Coast. It is week 11, I believe, of the show and the season, and had a lot happen this past weekend, and a lot going into this weekend. There's some more ranked matchups to get to. Uh, some craziness. Obviously, the new college football playoff, the first college football playoff poll rankings is out this week. So we've breaking that down a little bit and talking about that. There's no risers and fallers this week for the first week. Kind of just 1 week of that because of the rankings. Nobody's risen, nobody's fallen, in the new college football playoff rankings. And Tyler, you and I talk about the AP poll not meaning too much. Really, this is the poll to pay attention to, and that's the CFP poll and what teams are going to be in the top 12, and that's really the mark that you got to make. So we'll be talking about that a little bit opening. Of course, we'll get to our three games, three pretty good games with some ranked teams and a lot on the line, playoff implications in those games as well. And we'll close with our best bets for the weekend, and I think we got some pretty juicy ones for the weekend. It'll be good. But let's get started, Tyler. So the CFP poll comes out, and a lot of names that we expected to be there are there, probably 1 through 15. And then once we get outside of 15, we get to in the 20s, right at about the 25 mark. I think there's probably some teams there that are very questionable and some teams that are, why wasn't this team included? And I think the biggest thing that jumps out to me before I kick it over to you is uh, there's no G5. There's no group of five teams included in the CFP rankings for the first one.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That's where I got the issue of it. I mean, if you're gonna already put in the representative of the group of five, it's got to be from the American. I know that Tennessee's number 25. I don't really agree with Tennessee still being ranked. You could say that, yeah, they have some good losses. They just lost to Oklahoma, and their other losses are to Alabama and Georgia, who are both top five teams at the moment. But I just feel like if like Memphis and North Texas have done enough. I know that Memphis' best win on the season is against Arkansas, who is a two-win team. And then North Texas, their one loss is to South Florida, while Memphis beat South Florida. And then you can also say that South Florida deserves some praise too, especially with their road win. Actually, their home win last night, against UTSA. But it just feels like Memphis, North Texas, and even South Florida has done more than what like the Washingtons and like the Tennessees have done in the world. So that's really the only discrepancy. I think that you said this off air that Georgia Tech going from the top 10 to number 17 is pretty ridiculous. I know that they lost a pretty bad game to NC State. Their defense didn't really show up at all. I mean, Haynes King put up 500 total yards himself, and they still lost that game. But if you look at the teams behind them, like Vandy, like, what's their best win on this season? Like, maybe is it LSU, but they haven't really had a good win, in my opinion. And then Virginia, they're a nice story. Louisville's a nice story. I get that. But them being behind, like, Oklahoma and Utah even, I would have put Georgia Tech, like, in that category, like even Notre Dame or Texas category. I think that's being there at 17 is a little bit too low for me.
Yeah, I mean, that 10, 11, 12 spot really, to me, is up for grabs. And it's wide open as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if we're looking at it right now, the first team out would probably be Utah. In that particular poll, for if it's now, at large situation, and you've got a G5 in there, and I believe it's Memphis right now is that G5 that's snuck in. So, and they're not even the top 25. Like, that just goes to show it's kind of weird, the way it, and I know it probably doesn't make sense to a lot of people the way it currently is. Let's hope it plays out differently. I think there's a lot that's going to happen this weekend, especially when we talk about our first game. You know, that has a lot to do, I think, with what happens at 7 through 12. And we'll see what happens there. I mean, the teams above that look like they'll probably hold their own currently. I mean, Ole Miss has a cakewalk for the rest of the season. I mean, there's no damage there, really. And they'll hope they can move up potentially if somebody stumbles above them. As of right now, it doesn't seem that way. Of course, A&M right now looks like a lock for the SEC championship unless something crazy happens. And then your two Big Ten teams at the top of the board. You could make an argument that Indiana deserves to be number one with their production and what they've done so far this year. Ohio State really hasn't faced a dominant team yet this year. Texas was not. I think that's the only reason Ohio State is number one is because Texas has hung in there and somehow squeaked out a 7-2 record. And I think there's somewhere in the committee there's a lot of value in that Week 1 win against Texas. Even though both teams played terrible. So I think there's a lot on that. If Texas can win out, I think it puts. Huh?
That's a tall task because they have to go on the road to Georgia coming off their bye week.
Sure. I mean, it is a very tough task. I mean, if they are able to do that, they're back in the running, and they're probably a clear in at that point. But yeah, I just think there's a lot out there. Georgia Tech's a really good football team. Louisville looks good. Of course, Virginia looks incredible so far this year. But the question is, are they good enough, in the committee's eyes, to be included in the top 12? So a lot to come from that. Obviously, we can't really comment on anything yet in the movement of it. We'll have to see what plays out. But yeah, I think both of us have fair points with the aspect of there's no G5 team included, and there's some teams that are probably a little too low for my liking, and some teams that I honestly don't think should be even included. So yeah, there's a lot there to unpack, and we will definitely get to it next week in Week 12, and see what some of these teams are made of this weekend. Speaking of that, let's get into our games, and kind of one that I highlighted for a second there. That 7 and 8 game. It's a huge Big 12 game, probably the biggest game in the Big 12 in a number of years. Because we really haven't had a game in the Big 12 like this ever. It's been a long time. It's been a very long time. I think the last time was when Baylor was really competitive. And that's been some time. I mean, we're talking RG3 days, and it's been a while. So BYU, the Cougs, they're headed to Lubbock to face off against the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. Two powerhouse offenses. I mean, this to me is two heavyweight teams. I mean, offensively. Now, honestly, this is one of those, and we've talked about it before. If some team shows up with defense for half the game, they're probably going to win the game. I mean, you really need 2 quarters of defense in order to win a football game like this. A lot of points are available up there. They're talking the over-unders at 52.5. I think that's low, in my opinion, especially with these two teams, the way they score. And I wouldn't be afraid of that. But there's a lot on the line. BYU loses. It's a conference loss. They fall to 8-1. On the other end, Texas Tech's playing at home. They're 8-1 currently. If they lose, they fall to 8-2. And I'll let you kind of break down the conference standings and where these two teams sit and what that means for both of them. Because there's obviously at least one team, if not two, behind them that are definitely, chomping at the bit to figure out what goes on this weekend in this game. But in my opinion, I think offensively, Texas Tech has the upper hand. I haven't seen them score a low amount of points yet this season. They just seem really dominant right now. BYU hasn't lost a game. They're no stranger to making big runs like this. I like Texas Tech at home. I just feel Texas Tech at home is a really good football team, and they're a different team at home than they are on the road. Line's currently 10.5 to Texas Tech, which is a lot of points against an undefeated team. I think Texas Tech wins. I think BYU covers. I give it a touchdown. I'm going to go pretty wild. I think it's going to be a 42-35 game.
Wow, so a lot of points. So like you mentioned, just to give you an update of our Big 12 standings and to our viewers as well. So this game, like you mentioned, a lot of playoff implications and Big 12 Conference Championship implications. BYU is the lone undefeated in the conference. They're at 5-0. Then you have 2 5-1 teams. Texas Tech is at 5-1. Cincinnati at 5-1. And Cincinnati got blown out by Utah. So Utah starting to crawl back. You have Houston 4-2, Utah 4-2, Arizona State 4-2. I think outside of that, that's pretty much like all the teams that are still in the race. But I think that we're going to see this matchup not once but twice. I think that BYU and Texas Tech are going to run the table. The loser of this one, if it is Texas Tech, maybe we could see somebody else like a Cincinnati or Utah maybe get back in the race. But Texas Tech does have the head-to-head against Utah, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, this is a big one. College Game Day returns for the first time since that Michael Crabtree game-winning touchdown. Honestly, that was one of my favorite games growing up. That's really was like peak. I like saw it on Twitter pop up like Brent Musburger and the call like the old school graphics of ESPN. I wish that they never got rid of and their old. But yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of offense on both sides of the football. I know that BYU has been undefeated, but boy, they've had some close games. You know, a couple of weeks ago, it took them to overtime against Arizona. Texas Tech too. I mean, like their one loss was a 29-26 loss against Arizona State team that is still in the mix to get to Arlington. But yeah, this is going to be two talented quarterbacks. Will Hammond has got some play time, especially with Morton being out. So we will see who will be the starting quarterback. It's probably going to be Baron Morton, I would have to assume. BYU, Bear Bachmeier. So two talented quarterbacks going at it. The defenses, have had their ups and downs. Texas Tech and BYU, a lot of talented defenses. Probably two of the best defenses in the Big 12. I know that the line is Texas Tech minus 10.5. I think that's a little bit disrespectful to BYU. I believe that BYU is going to keep this game close, but I think that this would be a Texas Tech blowout if it was at night. But I think the 11 a.m. crowd is going to be still rowdy. But give me Texas Tech to win this one. I don't see it as that high scoring as you do. I think that the defenses will come to play at some point in this game. But give me Texas Tech 34-30. I think that Texas Tech wins this one and really takes hold of this Big 12 race. Maybe with this win, they get inside the top 5, just depending on if we have a couple of upsets, with Indiana go on the road to Penn State, as well as Alabama hosting LSU. We'll just have to see what else happens around the country. But whoever wins this one is going to take firm control of not only the Big 12, but the playoff race as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing to note with the conference, like this is impressive to me, and I think a lot of people were down on the Big 12, including myself, for obvious reasons, with some teams coming in, some teams leaving. But my goodness, 11 of the 16 teams have winning records currently. And here we are, week 11, and where there's 11 of 16 teams that have winning records. And I would say 8 of those teams, 7 of those teams are currently bowl eligible. You could have all 11 with a win become bowl eligible this weekend, which is very impressive for the Big 12. So props to them. I'm very impressed with the way that direction that conference is heading. And some very good matchups and some teams we haven't seen for a long time. So a lot of upside there for the Big 12. Let's get over to a powerhouse conference within itself here, and that is the SEC. We've got a good tilt this weekend. A&M, number 3 in the country. They're headed to Missouri to face off against Mizzou. This is to me. I don't know if I constitute it. If Missouri's healthy, this is a trap game to me. Missouri's not healthy, especially at the quarterback position. There's a lot up in the air with that, and I think there's a lot of uncertainty on their side of the football offensively. On the other side of the football with A&M, they had missed a beat all year long. I mean, Marcel Reed has taken that team far beyond what I think a lot of people expected. And A&M is back. I mean, it's crazy to see how well they've done this year in dominant fashion, really most of the time. Missouri struggled in the conference. They're 2-2 currently in the conference. Giving up a close one at home to Bama was really a heartbreaker for them. I think if they win that game, they're inside the top 12 still. But at 22, can't be too disappointed considering the injuries that you've faced so far this year. Hardy in the backfield has pretty much saved them and saved their season for the most part to keep them in the top 25. I just A&M's too powerful to me. It opened at a 4.5. It's at a 6.5. I don't I don't see this being a fight in the fourth quarter. I trust A&M to get it done. Too many weapons offensively. Running the ball, dual threat action. It's a lot. So give me A&M to cover this here at 6.5. I think it's probably I'm going to say it's going to be a 35-21 type game. I think it's 2 touchdowns, and it's too late for Mizzou to do anything really in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that a lot of people would be probably picking differently of this game if Bo Prabula was available in this game. But it feels like if the only way that Mizzou is going to stay in this one, if Ahmad Hardy just goes nuclear against this really talented Texas A&M front seven. A&M and Mizzou coming off of the bye week. Last time we saw A&M, they destroyed LSU. I mean, they didn't look great in that first half. A lot of mistakes early on in that game for Marcel Reed, but they were able to turn it on, just blow out LSU. Then you can see why LSU's in turmoil now because of that loss. But Missouri coming off of that tough loss on the road to Vanderbilt, and even when Prabula was knocked out in that game, that defense was still able to limit some big plays. And that's what they're going to have to do because Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, and even the running back of Reuben Owens has been able to get a lot of big plays. And Mizzou's defense has really been tested. I mean, they played really well against Alabama and Vanderbilt. So this defense is really going to have to show up because I don't think that they can really afford to get into a shootout with a team like Texas A&M that has a lot of weapons. And Texas A&M's defense have been involved in shootouts as well as some lower scoring games like the Auburn game. They had to win that game 16-10, and then they could win a game on the road in Notre Dame, put up 40 points and also give up 40 points. So I think that this Texas A&M team can win in many ways. I definitely agree with you. I think that this Texas A&M team is just a wagon at this point, looking at the rest of their schedule. If they win this one, what's their ceiling at this point? 11-1. I just don't really see that many other losses. I mean, you have Sanford at Texas is always difficult in a rivalry setting, but it feels like Texas A&M would really have to screw things up to not be in Atlanta for the SEC championship or probably face off against an Alabama team. So I think that Ahmad Hardy is definitely going to have some big runs, but it's not going to be enough. I just think that just too much Aggies in this one. Give me 31-17. I do think that Texas A&M will limit the big plays from Kevin Coleman and Ahmad Hardy, but give me the Aggies to continue their undefeated season here.
Yeah, I agree that this, not having Bama and Georgia on the schedule was a blessing for them. I mean, really, they lucked out in that deal. So, I mean, we know that that's coming in the future, but right now they're, like you said, they're a wagon right now, and you're just, I'm sorry, that's just rolling right now. So it's very hard to see them. I mean, if they get a dominant win this weekend and you see Indiana just get by on the road at Penn State this weekend, I don't see why they can't be number 2 in the country or number 1 in the country, just depending on how things go. Purdue is not a very good football team, obviously, with Ohio State playing. But if Ohio State comes out and they struggle early and A&M just takes them to the cleaners, I mean, it really could be A&M at number 1 really quickly. So, and I wouldn't scoff at that at all. To me, they are the number 1 team in the country. Their wins have been big wins. I can't see why they wouldn't be number 1 in the country. There's a little bit too much in the pipe there for the Big Ten conference currently, and I think A&M probably deserves the number 1 spot. That's just me. Let's move on to our last game here. So far, we agree on 2 of the 3 games. Let's see if we can agree on this last one here. And this one, to me, is a really good opportunity for one team to get a huge win, move into the college football playoff conversation, and for the other, they need to win to stay in the college football playoff conversation. So you lose this game at home, and it's a big loss. 2 teams in the gold and blue, and that is Navy, the midshipmen. They're headed to South Bend against the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. It's to me, it's a little bit too much value in Notre Dame currently at number 10. I think it's kind of ridiculous them being ranked where they are with their 2 losses. Granted, the more A&M wins, the better that loss looks.
So Miami's losing, and that
yeah. I mean, it really kind of is a catch-22 with the situation it is right now. 27.5 points is the line currently, Tyler. I would just shake my head. There's no possible way in my mind. I said it last week on the show. We can mention it when we get to our best bets. But I had Notre Dame winning that game by a mile. I think the line was 30.5 at the time.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame put up 25 points and won by 15 in a 25-10 game.
Or one-win Boston College team.
To a one-win Boston College team. Just to me, they're too all over the place. I can't trust that team to get it done. And let's talk about the other side of things. Let's talk about Navy. I mean, Horvath is there. We understand that anytime he is involved there, their offense is crazy. Anything can happen there, and it's really a toss-up. Rushing yards, receiving, throwing, passing yards. I mean, he's got it all. At a service academy, nonetheless, which is incredible. 7-1 Navy. In the American, you're currently in first place, I believe.
North Texas, I think.
I think they have the head-to-head with the same record, but you're in a head-to-head tie really with North Texas, and you've played really good. Like, you've played really good football so far this year. That's your one slip up, is a 31-17 loss on the road at North Texas. This, to me, there is too much doubt in Navy right now, and I have not seen a Navy team be able to score like the way they have. I think I said it last week. This is very good for them and a very good offense. 27.5 is too much to me. Honestly, I think you could be in the fourth quarter and this be a 3-point game, and I wouldn't be surprised by it, really. I mean, I can't see a 27.5 point line happening at the end of this game and it being a blowout. So yeah, I think Notre Dame holds on. I think with Navy not being ranked and where Vegas puts it at 27.5, I think that Notre Dame probably wins by a whopping 3 points. I think this is a 24-21 final. And I think it's an ugly win for Notre Dame. And honestly, with it, I think they fall in the rankings. With a lot happening behind them, I think they can probably fall to 12. And my prediction is they're the first team out after this weekend. And that's with a win. But, I mean, Navy has an opportunity for a huge win and to sneak their way in. So I want to get your perspective on this game.
Yeah, this is a really big weekend for the American. It already got kicked off on Thursday night with South Florida picking up a dominant win over a very good UTSA team that looks like they're a different team on the road versus at home. At home, they're blowing people out. On the road, they're getting blown out. But you also have a big one tonight. You got Tulane and Memphis, and the winner of that, especially if it's Memphis is going to feel pretty good about themselves, even with that one loss coming to South Florida. But I want to get to Navy here. We talked about last week's game, Navy, North Texas. If you didn't watch that game, North Texas was dominant in that game, 31-17. So North Texas, I mean, this American race is just up for grabs at this point. There's a lot of one-loss teams in the conference. South Florida with the head-to-head against North Texas, but they also lost to Memphis. So who the hell knows what's going to happen when they have a bunch of tiebreakers. But Navy's schedule, just look at what they have already. So they play North Texas, they have Notre Dame, and then you get South Florida at home and then Memphis on the road. This is going to be all hands on deck situation for Navy. If they can beat both South Florida and Memphis and maybe root for a North Texas loss, I mean, they're still in this race. So this Notre Dame game, to be honest with you, doesn't mean anything to them. Obviously, they get the win for them. And if they beat South Florida and they beat Memphis, obviously, if they beat Army, but because that game actually comes before the conference championships. So this is the season right here for Navy. And Navy, I haven't been too impressed with them lately. They just got blown out by North Texas. They barely got a win a couple of weeks ago against a Temple team that honestly isn't that bad. They're 5-3 right now. With one more win, they get bowl eligibility. And then they, FAU, they put up 32 points in that game. Notre Dame, too, I know that they're probably going to get into the playoff, but they're not going to make it all the way back to the national championship. Like you mentioned, they're just too up and down, too roller coaster ride. And if you remember, it feels like we're in the same situation as last season. Like we had this look at this big point spread. Oh, Navy's playing well, and then look what Notre Dame did. They beat the crap out of them last year. So I just don't know about this game, man. Like both of these teams just haven't really caught my eye on both sides of the football. Obviously, Navy has to worry about limiting CJ Carr because CJ Carr has really been playing well, and then Jeremiah Love. You just got to really limit the big plays. And then for Notre Dame's defense, Blake Horvath is really the guy that you got to zone on. So I think that this is going to be a weird and wacky game. I do think that Navy remembers what happened to them last year against Notre Dame, and that's going to really fuel them to the fire, especially a Navy team coming off of a loss. That's when you really don't want to play Navy because that's when they play their best brand of football. So 27.5, that's disrespectful. And to our bettors, if you want to be very bold, it's plus 2,000 Navy money line, so take that as you will. But since this is at night in Notre Dame Stadium, I will take the Irish, but 27.5, way too much. If you can't cover against a crappy Boston College team, and there's no way you're going to cover this against a Navy team, Navy still fighting for their season and for a playoff spot. They are going to want this one pretty bad, and they're going to play to their style of football. They're going to grind you down, run the triple option until you can't stop it anymore. So this is going to be a defensive game. I will take Notre Dame, though, to barely squeak away with a win, 27-24. Give me the Fighting Irish, but like you mentioned, don't be shocked if you look on your ESPN app or if you don't even have YouTube TV. Well, this game's on NBC, so hopefully you catch that. But give me Notre Dame, but I'm going to be definitely rooting for Navy because I really want to see Navy continue to win, and I just want a chaotic finish to this American Conference Championship. And I'm sick of Notre Dame being the playoff every year because the same crap is going to happen every year they're in.
Yeah, I mean, this is really an opportunity for Navy. I think there's a lot of people that have the back of the Service Academy nonetheless, and I think this is an opportunity for them to see some action and have a big group behind them and have their back. Like you said, don't want to face that team, especially after a loss last week. So we'll see what happens in that game. We talked about some lines and some craziness there. Let's get to our best bets. Let's close it out with our best bets of the weekend. Tyler, lead it off for us. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the SEC to lead off our best bet segment. If you were with us last week, we did go 2-2. Our two losses were Minnesota. They went overtime to Michigan State. They won 23-20. It was a bad bet. We had it at 3.5. They won by 3. And then we also had Notre Dame blowing out Boston College. But as you mentioned, only winning that game by 15 points. But nonetheless, 2-2, we will take it. But I'm going to go to Auburn at number 16, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is 6.5. Both of these teams are coming off of a loss. Auburn obviously firing their head coach in Hugh Freeze. So DJ Durkin is now the interim head coach. And what do we have seen the trends of this college football season? If you fire a head coach, I mean, the interim coach, we've seen it at UCLA. We've seen it with other programs like Virginia Tech even got a couple of wins. But Vandy, hasn't really looked as dominant as of lately. I mean, they were down by 34-10 against Texas. I know Auburn's offense has been terrible, but Auburn is one of 3 teams in the country to limit opponents to 24 points a game. They're in the same category with the number 1 and number 2 team in the country of Indiana and Ohio State. So if Auburn had any pulse on offense, they would probably be one of the top 15s in the country. But I just have a feeling that Auburn is going to be hella motivated, especially coming off an embarrassing performance at home against Kentucky. Only scoring 3 points against Kentucky. I think that the offense is going to do just enough. The defense, though, like Vandy, the offense has struggled against very good defenses. And Auburn, I'm just going to take them at plus 6.5. I do think that Vandy will win this game, but I think that Auburn is going to keep them very close. So give me Auburn plus 6.5 there.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to keep it in the SEC as well for my first one. We talked about it as one of our headline games. A&M and Missouri, line of 6.5 points to A&M. I think A&M covers that easily per my pick and your pick as well. So I'll take A&M to cover the 6.5 on the road at Missouri.
Yeah, for my second one, I'm going to go back to the Big Ten, even after the Big Ten treated me so poorly with Minnesota. But I'm going to go to the big noon kickoff game, which we thought that this was going to be a top 10 matchup in the preseason. It's now turned into a lopsided affair between number 2 Indiana and Penn State, who's looking so desperately to find their first win in the conference. If you'd have told me that in the preseason, yeah. I mean, I said it in our Big Ten conference preview that if James Franklin did what he did, then he was going to be gone. And surely enough, that's what happened. But Indiana is the 14.5. You think I'm going to be going to the point spread. However, I'm going to the over-under at 50.5. I really see this two ways. This is either going to be just a good old-fashioned Indiana butt kicking that we have seen in the past couple of weeks, where they put up like 40 points against a Penn State defense that have definitely been lacking. Or we see this get into a high-scoring shootout, because Penn State has the talent on offense and defense to keep this one close. But, you know, I just think at 50.5, I think that either Indiana will get there by themselves or Penn State will score just enough. However, with 14.5, I think that if ever in this season, if Penn State was going to show up for a game, they played Ohio State well in the first half. I mean, Ohio State did just enough. And then the second half, it got away for them. I think that Penn State coming back in Happy Valley will keep it close. I think that though this will turn into a high-scoring shootout, so give me 50.5, though I would not be shocked at all if this is the closest game that Indiana plays this season so far.
Yeah, little analytic from that game. Penn State is 25-2 all time against Indiana. So there's a lot riding on that to keep that record the way it is. So especially playing at home for Penn State. So yeah, there's a lot on the line there for Indiana season at least, and Penn State getting their first conference victory this season. For the last one here, I'm going to throw it to something we hadn't done all season long. We're going to the Conference USA. It's Kennesaw State playing New Mexico State. Kennesaw State is 6-2. New Mexico State is 3-5. Kennesaw is 4-0 in the conference after dropping 2 non-conference games. They are 4-0 in the conference. New Mexico State is 1-4 in the conference. So they have struggled to score and win games in the conference. This opened at a 7.5 line. It's currently at 9.5. I like the trend and the betting, the way it's going with this game. So give me Kennesaw State to cover the 9.5. I think they can get a 10-point win on the road. Kennesaw 7-2 could be very interesting, and congrats to them. You know, just 2 short years being in the FBS. That they are now competing and hopefully can get a big win and maybe make a conference championship. So congrats for them, and hopefully they get a big win this weekend. So that is our Week 11. We hope you all enjoy watching the games this weekend. Enjoy it. Weather's nice. Get outside. Go to a game if you're in the area and enjoy it. And we will see you guys back for Week 12 with some more craziness and hopefully a big update for our CFP poll in the top 25 there. So we'll see you guys again next week for Week 12.